Commander Jack Lucky Sterling stared at the holographic display floating above his desk, trying to decide if the universe was playing a cosmic joke on him. The message fragment, written in what appeared to be the last transmission from an entire civilization, simply read, "Never let the humans." "Well, that's not ominous at all," he muttered, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled hair. The rest of the bridge crew of the Earth exploration vessel Determination pretended not to notice their commander talking to himself again. They were used to it by now. Lucky, a nickname he'd earned by surviving 17 near-death experiences and one particularly awkward dinner with his ex-wife's new husband, had spent the last 3 months exploring the ruins of Galaxy M33. The mission was supposed to be routine: document the remains of the long-dead civilization, catalog any interesting technology, and try not to accidentally start an intergalactic incident. You know, the usual. But this was different. Greg Lucky called out to the ship's AI, "Can you verify the translation again?" The ship's generally reliable emergency guide materialized as a floating hologram wearing a cardigan and reading glasses it definitely didn't need. "Certainly, Commander. Though I must point out this is the 27th time you've asked for verification in the past hour. And the translation remains exactly the same as it was 26 verifications ago." Greg adjusted its holographic glasses with a distinctly judgmental air. "Would you like me to pretend I found something different this time? I could add some dramatic flair if you'd prefer." Lucky ignored the AI's sarcasm. "That's what you get when you let programmers with a sense of humor design your ship's computer. Just run it again." The message fragment floated in the air, taunting them with its incompleteness. Humanity had spent the last century building a reputation as the galaxy's unofficial protectors. It wasn't a role anyone had expected them to take on. Most species had assumed humans would be conquerors, given their history. Instead, they'd become the equivalent of the galaxy's designated drivers, always ready to step in when things got messy. Commander called out Lieutenant Reese from her station at Communications. "We're getting signals from the other research teams. They've found similar message fragments in their sectors." Lucky leaned forward. "Similar how?" "All partial messages, all referring to humans, all apparently written just before." She paused, swallowing hard. "Just before whatever happened to Galaxy M33 happened." The entire bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the stories about M33. An entire galaxy gone dark in less than a week. No distress calls, no signs of war or natural disaster. Just silence. It had become a cautionary tale, a ghost story told at space academies across the known universe. And now, after millennia of mystery, they'd found something. A warning about humans. Because of course it was about humans. It was always about humans. "Well," Lucky said, standing up and straightening his uniform, "I suppose we should figure out what the rest of that message says before someone jumps to conclusions and decides Earth needs a strongly worded letter about proper galaxy-sitting etiquette." Greg's hologram raised an eyebrow. "Sir, might I point out that your attempt at humor in serious situations is a documented coping mechanism? Might I point out that your programming includes an off switch? Technically it doesn't. Want to test that theory?" The AI sighed, a completely unnecessary gesture for a being that didn't breathe. "Shall I alert the other research teams that we'll be coordinating efforts to piece together the complete message?" Lucky nodded, his expression growing serious despite his bantering tone. Whatever this message was, whatever warning these long-dead beings had tried to leave about humanity, they needed to find it. The fate of an entire galaxy might have hinged on those words. He just hoped they weren't too late to hear them. The funny thing about humanity becoming the galaxy's self-appointed guardians was that it happened completely by accident. Like most things involving humans, it started with someone trying to help and snowballed into something that would later require extensive paperwork and at least 3 formal apologies. That someone was Lieutenant Dana Oops Murphy, whose nickname came from her unfortunate habit of accidentally solving major diplomatic crises by being, in her own words, aggressively helpful. The incident that started it all happened during humanity's first official contact with an alien species, the ZRK. Lucky had been there, a fresh-faced ensign at the time, watching as Murphy single-handedly redefined humanity's role in the galaxy by offering a Zarak diplomat a sandwich. "The thing you have to understand about the ZRK," Lucky explained to his current crew as they continued searching for message fragments, is that they look exactly like what you'd get if you asked a child to draw a shark made of crystal while having a sugar rush. They're also historically one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Were Greg corrected. Past tense. Thanks to Lieutenant Murphy's intervention. The Zarak had arrived on Earth expecting to find another primitive species to add to their empire. What they found instead was Dana Murphy, working late at the Diplomatic Center's cafeteria, who took one look at the crystalline death sharks and decided they looked hungry. You look famished, she'd said, completely ignoring their drawn weapons and the way their crystalline bodies sparkled with barely contained energy weapons. Here, try this tuna melt. I just made it fresh. The Zarak Emperor, who had conquered 17 solar systems and was personally responsible for the extinction of at least 3 species, found himself sitting at a cafeteria table eating a sandwich while Murphy chatted about her grandmother's secret recipe. Did you know? She'd said, pulling up a chair, that sharks on Earth are actually really misunderstood. Everyone thinks they're these terrifying predators, but most species are actually pretty shy. They only attack humans when they mistake us for seals. Which, honestly, is a bit insulting to seals if you think about it. The Zarak Emperor, who had never encountered a species that didn't immediately either attack or cower in fear, found himself engaged in a discussion about Earth's marine life. By the time Murphy started showing him pictures of adorable baby sharks on her phone, 3 galactic peace treaties had been inadvertently negotiated. The best part, Lucky continued, grinning at the memory, was that she had no idea who they were. When the actual diplomatic team finally arrived, they found the most feared conquerors in known space asking Murphy if she could share her recipe and if she'd be interested in catering their next invasion fleet's company picnic. To be fair, Greg interjected, the concept of a company picnic did more to rehabilitate the Zarak's image than any official diplomatic effort. That incident set the tone for humanity's entire relationship with the galactic community. While other species had spent millennia building complex diplomatic protocols and carefully navigating interstellar politics, humans just bumbled in with what Murphy would later describe as aggressive friendliness. When the Zith collective faced extinction due to their sun going supernova, humanity's response was to show up with a fleet of ships playing the final countdown over all frequencies while announcing, "Get in, losers, we're going shopping for a new planet." When the Praxelites and the Vaughn were on the brink of war over a translation error, Earth sent a team of linguistics professors who solved the crisis by introducing both species to puns. The resulting peace treaty included 17 pages of dad jokes translated into both languages. And when the hegemony of pure light threatened to cleanse younger species from the galaxy, humanity's response was to create an intergalactic neighborhood watch program. They called it Space Karens Against Bullying, complete with bumper stickers for their warships that read, "I'd like to speak to the hegemon's manager." It shouldn't have worked, Lucky mused, looking at the fragmentary warning they'd found. By all logic, we should have started at least 3 galactic wars by now. Instead, Greg finished, humanity has the highest approval rating of any species in the United Galactic Survey's annual "Who would you call in an emergency" poll. Though I should note that we also rank first in the most likely to turn any situation into an impromptu party category. Lucky turned back to the message fragment. Whatever warning these ancient beings had tried to leave about humanity, it had to be important. An entire galaxy doesn't just disappear without a reason. So Lieutenant Reese called out, her voice tight with excitement, "I think we've found another piece of the message. You're going to want to see this." Lucky stood, straightening his uniform. "Let me guess, it's either going to be really good news or really bad news, with no possibility of anything in between." "It's definitely one of those, sir." Of course it is, Lucky sighed, because that's exactly how these things always go when humans are involved. The assembled message fragments hovered in the air like pieces of a particularly morbid puzzle. Lucky stared at them, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "Greg," he said slowly, "please tell me I'm reading this wrong." The AI's hologram adjusted its sweat, or a nervous tick someone had programmed in that only manifested when delivering bad news. "I'm afraid not, Commander. We've verified the translation multiple times. The complete message reads, 'Never let the humans know we could have prevented this.' Our refusal to aid others drew their attention. They are coming. They will judge us as we judged others. We deserve that's where it ends." Lucky dropped into his chair. "Well, that's different from what we expected." Indeed, Greg agreed. Though I should point out that the dramatic chair dropping was a bit theatrical, even for you. I'm having a moment here, Greg. You're always having a moment, Commander. Lieutenant Reese cleared her throat. Sir, we're receiving data from the other research teams. They've found evidence that supports the message. This galaxy. They let civilizations die, repeatedly. They had the power to help but chose not to. The holographic display shifted, showing historical records recovered from various ruins. Species after species, civilization after civilization, all reaching out for help. All denied. They watched. Reese continued, her voice tight with anger. They just watched as less advanced species faced extinction events, natural disasters, cosmic catastrophes. They had the technology to prevent it all, but they chose to observe instead. They called it maintaining the natural order. Right up until something observed them back, Lucky muttered. But what were they afraid of? What was coming for them? Greg's hologram flickered. Sir, I believe I found something relevant in their astronomical data. In the weeks before their civilization vanished, they detected an unusual number of ships entering their galaxy. The energy signatures match. Well, this is awkward. Spit it out, Greg. They match human design, sir. Or at least what human ships might look like if our technology was several thousand years more advanced. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Lucky looked around at his crew, seeing the same realization dawn on all their faces. Time travel, he said finally. They weren't afraid of what was coming. They were afraid of what had already been here. Of what we'd become. More specifically, Greg added, they were afraid of what humanity apparently does to civilizations that refuse to help others. Though I must say, wiping out an entire galaxy seems a bit extreme, even for us. We usually stick to strongly worded letters and the occasional trade embargo. Lucky stood up, pacing the bridge. But that doesn't make sense. Why would future humanity destroy them instead of helping them change? That's not what we do. Unless Reese said quietly, they didn't destroy the galaxy at all. What if they saved it? Everyone turned to look at her. Think about it, she continued. We have no evidence of destruction, just absence. What if future humanity didn't eliminate them? What if they evacuated them? Forced them to experience being helped against their will? That Lucky started laughing. That actually sounds exactly like something we would do. The ultimate act of aggressive helpfulness, saving an entire galaxy of people who refuse to save others. Greg's hologram smiled. It would explain why we haven't found any remains. No weapon signatures. No signs of violence. Just empty cities and this warning. A warning, Lucky realized. That isn't about stopping humans from protecting the weak. It's about what happens when you refuse to help others. Eventually, humanity shows up and helps you anyway, whether you like it or not. So one of the junior officers called out, "What do we do with this information?" Lucky looked at the message one more time, a grin spreading across his face. What humanity always does, Ensign. We help. We protect. And apparently somewhere down the line, we get really, really good at it. Even if that means inventing time travel just to retroactively save people who don't want saving, Greg asked. Especially then. Because that's just about the most human thing I've ever heard. Lucky straightened his uniform. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we've found something interesting, but leave out the time travel bit for now. I don't want to give our scientists any ideas. They're dangerous enough with current technology. As the crew began composing their report, Lucky couldn't help but smile. Somewhere out there, sometime in the future, humanity would become powerful enough to save entire galaxies, and apparently they'd use that power to be the biggest, most helpful pain in the universe's collective rear end. It was, he had to admit, pretty on brand for his species. We can't share this information, Chief Science Officer Raj Protocol Patel announced, slamming his hand on the conference room table. The gesture would have been more dramatic if he hadn't immediately winced and shaken out his stinging palm. Lucky watched his Chief Science Officer with amusement. Patel had earned his nickname Protocol by being the only person in the Earth fleet who actually read all the procedural manuals. Twice. For fun. The fact that he was now advocating for breaking about 17 different regulations about information sharing was either a sign of the apocalypse or a testament to how weird their situation had become. Let me get this straight, Lucky said, leaning back in his chair. You, The man who once filed a formal complaint because someone used the wrong color ink on a maintenance request, want to hide information from Earth Command. Technically, Patel adjusted his glasses. I filed 3 complaints about the ink incident. The color coding system exists for a reason, Commander. But this is different. We're talking about time travel, possible future humanity. The philosophical implications alone could drive half the philosophy department at Oxford to drink, Lieutenant Reese suggested. More than usual, you mean, Greg's hologram added. Patel ignored them both. Commander, think about it. If we reveal that humanity apparently invents time travel just to forcibly save people who don't want saving, it could change everything. Our relationships with other species, our technological development, He was interrupted by a priority alert from the bridge. Lieutenant Reese checked her tablet and went pale. Sir, she said slowly, we're being hailed. By everyone. Lucky blinked. Define everyone. 17 different species just dropped out of FTL at the edge of this sector. They're all requesting to speak with us. At once. And they're broadcasting on frequencies we didn't even know existed. Greg's hologram flickered. Commander, these ships. Their technology readings are off the charts. Several of them appear to be using drive systems that shouldn't be possible for at least another 1,000 years. More time travelers, Lucky asked. No, Patel said, studying his own readings. These are observers, representatives from advanced civilizations that have been watching us. Waiting to see what we'd find here, he looked up, his face serious. They want to know what we'll do with this information. Lucky rubbed his temples. So what you're telling me is that not only did we just discover that future humanity apparently becomes the galaxy's aggressive life coach, but now we've got an audience of super advanced aliens watching to see how we handle that news. That would be an accurate, if somewhat flippant, summary of our situation, yes, Greg confirmed. Wonderful. Lucky stood up and straightened his uniform. Well, protocol, looks like the choice about sharing this information just got made for us. Unless you want to try explaining to 17 advanced civilizations why we're not returning their calls. Patel sighed. That would violate at least 23 diplomatic protocols. Only 23? You're slipping. The ship's sensors has registered more arrivals. The observation fleet was growing. They're not just watching us, Reese realized. They're watching humanity. This is a test. Of course it is, Lucky said, heading for the bridge. Everything's a test when you're the species known for adopting every underdog in the galaxy. They want to know if we'll change when we learn that we apparently become powerful enough to enforce our help everyone policy across time itself. And what exactly are we going to tell them? Patel asked, hurrying after him. Lucky grinned. The truth. That we're absolutely delighted to learn that we stay true to ourselves even after we figure out time travel. That future humanity is exactly as helpfully annoying as current humanity, and that anyone who has a problem with that is welcome to file a complaint, which we will promptly ignore while helping them anyway. That's your plan? Patel looked horrified. To tell an audience of super advanced civilizations that we're proud of being the galaxy's most persistent, helpful nuisance. Got a better idea? Several. All involving proper diplomatic channels and… Greg Lucky cut him off. Open a channel to all vessels. Let's say hello to our audience. The AI's hologram smiled. Setting up the call now, Commander. Though I feel compelled to point out that this course of action violates approximately 47 regulations about first contact protocols. Only 47? Patel looked personally offended. No, it's at least 62 if you count the subsections about proper communication hierarchies. Would you like me to list them all? Commander Greg asked innocently. Lucky straightened his collar. What I would like is for both of you to remember that we're about to talk to beings advanced enough to watch us without us knowing they were there. This isn't the time for counting regulations. There's always time for proper protocol, Patel muttered, but he took his station anyway. The communication system hummed to life. On the main screen, representatives from 17 of the most advanced civilizations in known space appeared, waiting to hear humanity's response to what they had discovered. Lucky took a deep breath. Whatever he said next would go down in history. It would define humanity's relationship with these advanced species and potentially influence the course of their own development into the time-traveling space meddlers they apparently became. Well, he said to his crew, let's show them why humanity gets voted most likely to help, even if you really wish we wouldn't every year. The future of human-alien relations was about to be determined by their response. Lucky just hoped that somewhere in the future, the version of humanity that had started all this was watching and enjoying the show. Lucky had practiced first contact speeches in the mirror. Everyone in the fleet did, dreaming of the day they'd get to deliver profound words of wisdom to an advanced civilization. None of that practice involved 17 super-advanced species simultaneously watching him while holding coffee. Before we begin our formal response, he said to the assembled aliens on screen, I feel it's important to mention that this is Lieutenant Murphy's coffee. The good stuff she keeps in her personal stash. The kind that technically violates 3 different arms control treaties. Murphy, who had joined them on the bridge for this historic moment, held up her thermos defensively. It's just coffee. Lieutenant Patel interjected, your coffee once ate through a deck plate. That was a manufacturing defect in the deck plate. The deck plate was rated to withstand plasma weapons. Lucky cleared his throat. The assembled alien representatives were watching this exchange with expressions ranging from confusion to concern to what appeared to be someone taking notes. Distinguished representatives. He continued, we've discovered something remarkable in the ruins of Galaxy M33. Evidence that humanity eventually becomes powerful enough to enforce our particular brand of aggressive helpfulness across time itself. Some might expect this discovery to make us reconsider our approach. He paused for effect, something that would have worked better if Murphy hadn't chosen that moment to take a very loud sip of her coffee. Instead, Lucky continued, we're absolutely delighted. In fact, the ship's emergency alert cut him off. Greg's hologram flickered urgently. Commander, priority distress signal. The colony on Proxima VII is under attack. It's the hegemony of pure light. There the AI actually sounded shocked. They're saying this is our fault. That the discovery of the M33 message proves humanity will become too powerful. They're attempting to correct the timeline by eliminating human influence. The advanced aliens watched with interest. This wasn't just a test anymore, it was humanity's first challenge with the weight of their future knowledge. Lucky looked at his crew, then at the watching representatives. Distinguished guests, if you'll excuse us for a moment, we have a practical demonstration of humanity's response to bullies. Commander Patel protested. Proxima VII is 6 hours away at maximum warp. Even if we, actually one of the alien representatives spoke for the first time, their voice carrying an amused tone, we might be able to help with that. Consider it our contribution to this experiment. Before anyone could respond, reality twisted. The Determination found itself orbiting Proxima VII, facing down 3 hegemony warships. Well, Lucky said after a moment, that's handy. Remind me to send a thank you note. Now, let's show the hegemony why picking a fight with humanity is a bad idea. Lieutenant Murphy. Sir. How do you feel about sharing your coffee? Murphy's eyes lit up with unholy glee. You want me to? Load it into the torpedo tubes. Yes, I do. Patel made a strangled sound. Commander, that violates at least protocol. I swear by all that's holy, if you start counting regulations right now. But we don't even know if… Greg Lucky cut him off. What would happen if we loaded Murphy's coffee into a torpedo and fired it at a hegemony ship? The AI ran the calculations. Based on previous incidents involving the lieutenant's coffee, total systems failure, possible hull breach, definite violation of the Geneva Convention, and Greg paused. Sir, I believe it would also strip the paint off their ships. Perfect. Lucky turned to the watching aliens. Distinguished representatives, I apologize for what you're about to witness. In our defense, they started it. What followed would later be described in official reports as an aggressive application of caffeinated diplomacy. Murphy's coffee, when weaponized via torpedo tube, proved to be surprisingly effective against hegemony shields. The fact that it also turned their pristine white ships a mottled brown was, as Lucky would later claim, just a bonus. The battle was brief, decisive, and involved more property damage than anyone had thought possible from a beverage. The hegemony ships retreated, their crews likely in need of both a fresh paint job and therapy. As the dust settled, Lucky addressed the still-watching representatives. As I was saying before we were interrupted, humanity is delighted to learn that our future selves maintain our commitment to helping others, even if that means inventing time travel to do it, even if that means being the most annoying, helpful species in the galaxy, and even if that means occasionally using improvised coffee-based weapons to prove our point. He gestured at the retreating hegemony ships. This is who we are. We help people. We protect the weak. We drink coffee that probably violates the laws of physics. And if you tell us we're going to become powerful enough to do that across time itself, well, that just means we need to start practicing now. Murphy raised her thermos in a toast. Several of the watching aliens copied the gesture with their own drinks, though a few looked concerned about what might be in them. So yes, Lucky concluded, we found your message about our future selves, and our response is simple: challenge accepted. We're going to keep helping, keep protecting, and keep being the galaxy's most persistent do-gooders. And now we know we get really good at it. The alien representatives exchanged looks. Finally, one spoke. This is exactly the response we expected from humanity. Though we admit, the coffee weapon was unexpected. If you think that's impressive, Murphy said, wait until you see what I can do with an espresso shot. Please don't give them ideas, Patel muttered. We've violated enough regulations for one day. The advanced aliens began disappearing from the screen, most of them looking amused. The last one lingered for a moment. You know, they said, those future humans who saved Galaxy M33. They also started with a cup of coffee and a refusal to mind their own business. The screen went dark, leaving the crew of the Determination with their thoughts, their slightly coffee-stained torpedo tubes, and the satisfaction of knowing that some things about humanity never changed. Even if those things involved weaponized beverages. 3 months after the coffee incident, as it had become known in diplomatic circles, Lucky found himself back in his office, staring at another message. This one had appeared on his desk with no explanation, written on actual paper, something that hadn't been used for official documents in decades. Greg, he called out. Any idea where this came from? The AI materialized, still wearing its cardigan, but now with an addition of a coffee stain that Lucky suspected was a commentary on recent events. No, Commander. Though I do note that the paper appears to be approximately 3,000 years old. Lucky picked up the note carefully. The handwriting was familiar, suspiciously familiar. Is this my handwriting? Indeed, Greg confirmed. Though with subtle signs of arthritis, I would estimate it was written approximately 50 years in your personal future. The note was simple. The M33 message wasn't a warning. It was a recruitment ad. Look closer at the date. Lucky pulled up the original message fragments. He'd looked at them 100 times. But now, Greg, what's significant about the date this message was written? The AI was silent for a moment. Oh my. Commander, this message was written exactly 1 day after humanity first achieved time travel. According to the historical records we found, at least. Lucky started laughing. Son of A. It was us. All of it. We didn't save M33 because they were refusing to help others. We evacuated them because we knew they would help others if they just had the right example. And who better to provide that example than the species known for being aggressively helpful, Greg mused. Though I do have one question: if future humanity evacuated an entire galaxy just to create an object lesson about the importance of helping others, where did they put everyone? Lucky finished. He looked at the note again. There was a PS. He hadn't noticed before. Check out Galaxy M110. And yes, that's where that bizarre custom of serving coffee at every diplomatic function came from. You're welcome. You PPS. Murphy's great-granddaughter invents something called quantum espresso. Invest early. The implications were staggering. An entire galaxy of people, relocated through time, taught to help others by example, all orchestrated by future humanity. Not as punishment, but as education. You know what this means, right? Lucky asked. That humanity's dedication to helping others eventually extends to literally moving galaxies to make a point, Greg suggested. That too. But I was thinking more about the fact that we apparently become the kind of civilization that looks at an entire galaxy of people not living up to their potential and decides the solution is to create the galaxy's biggest humanitarian intervention program. complete with time travel and weaponized coffee, Greg added. Naturally, Lucky tucked the note into his uniform pocket. Should we tell anyone about the fact that humanity basically created its own reputation for helping others by deliberately setting up an example of why helping others is important, thereby ensuring we would become the kind of civilization that would go back in time to set up that example in the first place? Yeah, that. Greg's hologram smiled. I think some stories are better left as mysteries, Commander. Though I do suggest investing in quantum espresso when you get the chance. Lucky looked out at the stars, thinking about cycles of causality and the extraordinary lengths his species would apparently go to just to help others become better people. It was ridiculous, over the top, and exactly the kind of thing humans would do. You know what the real message was, don't you? He said finally. That humanity's greatest strength is our stubborn insistence on helping others, even when it requires bending the laws of physics and common sense. With that, and apparently we make really good coffee. Somewhere out there, Lucky knew future humanity was watching, probably drinking quantum espresso and feeling very pleased with themselves for creating the galaxy's most elaborate teaching moment. He hoped they were enjoying the show. After all, they'd gone through an awful lot of trouble to make sure it happened.